Most of us, I imagine, have spent at least some time in a courtroom. Hopefully you were there for jury selection or to support a friend or a family member, maybe as an officer of the court. Of course, I realize some of us have been there in other less aspiring capacities. My early 30s, I got pulled over in my van for not displaying a valid registration. The officer issued me a fix-it ticket, and I can't recall why, but I ended up with a court appointment to resolve the issue. I probably just didn't understand the appropriate process of remediation. Nonetheless, there I was in the courtroom awaiting my turn to stand before the judge. I knew that at worst I could receive a moderate fine. But nonetheless, I found this otherwise unremarkable man of middle-aged, average height and build, I found him intimidating. Not necessarily who he was personally, but due to the symbols of his position and power. The black robe seated behind the raised desk had me more than anxious. My guess is that many of us have felt the same. In their courtroom, judges evoke in us a sense of reverence, if not fear. And yet it's God's judgment in Psalm 96 that does not repel the nations, but draws the nations to the Lord to worship him. The psalm begins this way: sing to the Lord a new song. Sing to the Lord, all the earth. Sing to the Lord, praise his name. Proclaim his salvation day after day. Declare his glory among the nations, his marvelous deeds among the all peoples. Now, verses 7 through 9, to paraphrase, speak of ascribing to the Lord glory, strength, and a call to worship God in all his holiness. And then this in verse 10, say among the nations, the Lord reigns. The world is firmly established. It cannot be moved. He will judge the peoples with equity. Verse 13 goes beyond the nations, claiming, let all creation rejoice before the Lord, for he comes to judge the earth. He will judge the world in righteousness and the people in his faithfulness. And the reason I bring up Psalm 96 and God's judgment is that I would suggest it is the idea, God's judgment is the idea behind the song of Moses and the Lamb that we began looking at last time. Remember, the people sang, great and marvelous are your deeds, Lord God Almighty. Just and true are your ways, King of the nations. Who will not fear you, Lord, and bring glory to your name? For you alone are holy. All nations will come and worship before you, for your righteous acts have been revealed. Now, if you've got time this week for some additional study, just lay these two passages side by side and highlight the continuities. The Song of Revelation does not tell us why the nations come before our God to worship, just that they do. Psalm 96, which I think it draws upon, gives us the why, and that is God's judgment. And God's judgment can be terrifying, but that's not its central feature. Isaiah 28:21 refers to God's judgment as his strange work and his alien task. You could say that refers to God's retributive judgment, God's judgment against wrongdoers. But for the meek and lowly, for the poor in spirit, the sheep without a shepherd, God's judgment is good news. It restores and it sets things right. And God's execution of his good judgment in this way will lead the nations to him as a moth to a flame. Now, the call for us today is, yes, to worship God for his good and gracious judgment, but also to be participants in God's restorative, setting to right kinds of judgment, beginning with our own lives, right? Setting right the wrongs that we've perpetrated. And then looking beyond that to those hurting and needing around us and being the willing instruments of God's restorative work in their lives, such that they might just come to worship him as well. Have a blessed week.